Welcome to a Community Partners interview where we explore the organizations, opportunities, and resources that look to make change in our daily lives. I'm your host, Lilly Cereghini, and you're listening to Voices for Ability Radio. All abilities, all the time. Today, I'm joined by Erin Parks, the founder and executive director for the Lotus Center for Special Music Education. Lotus Center for Special Music Education believes that every child has a right to appropriate education in any endeavor they choose to pursue. This means working with a teacher who understands the nature of the student's needs and constantly strives to meet them while creating a nurturing and fun environment. They also believe that music education can provide a means of communication, can improve function and performance in non-musical areas, and can provide an emotional outlet for all people. This is especially valuable for students with special challenges. Thank you for joining us today, Erin.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Just to get started, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and why you chose to work specifically for Lotus and for people with disabilities?
Sure. So my background is as a music educator. I've been teaching private music lessons, particularly piano and group lessons, for about 30 years. And my work since I started, including working with students with different abilities. But it didn't really occur to me that that was, a specific area of music education until I started working on my PhD, which was in 2010. And at the same time that I was starting my PhD, my eldest son was diagnosed with autism. So, of course, as a mom, my whole life became autism and learning about autism and navigating that world. And at the same time, I was embarking on my PhD in music education, where I was, I focused on autism and music education there as well, and was really learning about the different ways that autistic people process music and ways that they could be taught that would really emphasize those strengths. And as I was doing that, and thinking about my own teaching experiences, really realizing that teachers don't have this information. They don't know how to do this. And so there are not really places that, people with autism or different needs can go and work with teachers that understand what they need and how to teach them to, make the most of their learning potential. And also as a parent, I was experiencing that, trying to take my son for swimming lessons or soccer or anything like that, that so often was a total failure because the teachers didn't know how to work with him. And so that's when I started to really specialize in this area. And that's where Lotus Center came from, was just trying to create a place where all of the teachers specialize, where we're really dedicated and passionate about music education, accessible music education, and where parents and caregivers can have a lot of trust that, we are there for these students and are completely dedicated to making sure that they have the best music experience possible.
Absolutely. I take music myself, and it is a one-on-one kind of scenario. And, it's great actually to get the attention that you deserve and that you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
On your website, I saw that you have a couple of different programs to offer. So can you tell us a little bit more about what those programs do?
Sure. So a big part of our work is private music lessons. So we have music lessons for piano, voice, ukulele, guitar, drums, like lots of different instruments. And we also have general music lessons. So for students that are not interested in a specific instrument yet, or just aren't ready for, dedicated study in a specific instrument, they're more general lessons, doing music games or playing different percussion instruments, exploring different instruments and musical concepts, that kind of thing. We also have a rock band. We have a choir, though it's not at all like what you would think of as a traditional choir. So we call it singing collective to better reflect what it is. We have music and movement classes for young children as well as school-aged children. And then we also have music camps. This is actually a huge part of the work that we do. So we have summer camp for all 9 weeks of summer. We have March break camp. And we also have what we call mini music camps on Sunday afternoon. So it's like 1 to 4 p.m., a half day camp. And in all of our camps, we have obviously music activities. But we also do things like outdoor play or swimming in the summer, typical camp activities, but really with a music focus. And all of our activities are, not inclusive in the sense that it's open to everybody. It's really adaptive. We're really focused on the disability community. So all of our programs, all of our students are part of the neurodivergent or disability or deaf communities.
Excellent, excellent. That sounds very diverse and helpful, actually. What is your outreach service? And could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So our outreach has really exploded the past couple of years because thankfully we've received a lot of funding. So we've been able to really expand. Our outreach involves going out into the community and providing our services. So often it's in special education classrooms or special education schools or day programs, group homes. We also partner with like recreation therapy departments at hospitals. That kind of thing, or different advocacy groups. And we do group programs with their existing group. So with their group of students or, whatever sort of group format they're working in. And we go and provide usually a music workshop, or we call it a music circle. So usually 45 minutes. Sometimes it's just a one-off, but for a lot of our partners, we do blocks of maybe 10 sessions, or some of them we do all year long. So every week we have a music session. And that's really become a huge part of our work. We see about 1,200 students a year now with that program. We also have outreach in which we partner with the National Arts Center. And we do a combination of going into the classrooms or into the groups and doing music circles, but they're very focused on orchestral instruments. And then after we do a series of 3 workshops, the participants go to the National Arts Center and get to have a special chamber concert. So they get to see a concert with the instruments that they've learned about and practiced playing, and they've been introduced to the musicians. So that's been a really great partnership that we've had for 13 years now with the National Arts Center that has also grown a lot. And so we're really grateful to be able to do more of this programming because we can just reach so many people through our outreach.
That is so cool because orchestral music is just this huge, expansive, immersive thing. I've seen a number of orchestras, both live and just on video on YouTube, and it's incredible.
Well, yeah. And the other thing with that is, part of why we did it is we've heard from so many people in the community that they tried to go to these concerts because they know how much of a meaningful experience it can be, but they had a lot of trouble because their child was not able to sit still or be quiet or all of these etiquette things that are kind of silly, actually. There's not really any reason that has to be the way that you enjoy music. But because they wanted to move or they wanted to make noise, they were shushed or even asked to leave. So to have the opportunity for these dedicated concerts is really, I think, comforting for the community that they don't have to worry about that. We also do adaptive concerts with Ottawa Chamber Fest, where we don't have the workshops and everything, but we just do the adaptive concerts. And that's also been, I think, really valuable for the people that attend.
For sure. Absolutely. I also saw on your website that you have something called Teaching Resources Research. Can you tell us a little bit about what that entails?
Yeah, so to me, it's like professional development for music educators. And I mean, from my PhD experience, this is that was my work in my PhD was to develop a training program for teachers and to look at how effective it was and all these different things. But to me, it's the activity that can have the most impact because, we're limited at Lotus Center. We can only do so much work with the staff that we have. But the more teachers we train, it's kind of exponential, right? Like if I train one teacher, then they might reach 20 students. And, for every teacher that we reach, they're going to reach so many students. And so we invest a lot of time and effort into developing workshops for teachers or courses or resources and that kind of thing. And so there too, we are really fortunate to have funding, and we're reaching about I think last year it was about 1,100 teachers. So, like, that's a lot of potential students. And so we're putting more and more effort into that because we really see that that can have huge impacts on accessibility in music education.
Massively, massively, especially with the ratios that you name. Like if you have one teacher reaching out to 20 different students, I mean, multiply 1,100 by 20, that's quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Are there any restrictions to the services that you provide, such as age or caregivers or family members only, things of that nature?
No. And it's also not like you don't have to have any kind of diagnosis or anything like that. So anybody that would benefit from adaptive services is welcome to come. We have all ages and also all different exceptionalities. So I've mentioned autism because that was my research, and my son has autism, but that's certainly not representative of the breadth of students that we have at Lotus Center. We're really open to anybody that needs adaptive music education services.
Amazing. When it comes to allocating supports and resources, does that process look like? Like what determines who gets what?
It's really just individual, and we do our best to make sure everybody has what they need. So, like when new students come in, we have a whole sort of intricate intake process to make sure that we understand their learning needs. We've talked with their caregivers if they are, not adults, to make sure that we understand their goals as well and what they're looking for, what they've seen at home in terms of music. We also have sort of a meet and greet with the student where we just part of it is just to be in a room with them because we have like a profile filled out, but that doesn't really tell us a lot, right? And so we have to see the student to get to know them. We just kind of play games with them or let them see the space, which is also huge for them to be able to see the space before they have to walk into a lesson. And then we really just honestly make sure that we give every student everything that they need. So we really work hard to match up the student with a teacher that we feel can best support them, depending on their needs and their age and, what they want to learn. For camps as well, like we do have a better than 2-to-1 ratio. So we have groups of 7 campers in each room and 4 staff. But sometimes we have a camper that needs a one-on-one. And so we do everything we can to provide a one-on-one. Sometimes we have students that need to take a lot of breaks. That's no problem. We make sure we can accommodate them. It's really just about getting the information ahead of time. And then we put the supports in place that we need to.
Excellent, for sure. So I like this question. Without using any names, can you share a success story that you've encountered in your work?
Yeah, I have a student. There are different types of success stories, right? There are students that have really blossomed with their musical abilities. There are students who it had a real impact on their mental health. There are students that have connected with other kids, but I think one that is a student of mine, so it's easier for me to kind of recount the story. He's been with me for about 10 years now, so he's like an adult. I think he's 21 or something now. But he's a piano student, and he always, his parents always recognized that he had musical abilities, but he'd never played an instrument before he started lessons when he was about 10 or whatever. But he, started lessons. He has a really great ear, so we really worked with that. But there was one time we were doing the National Art Center orchestra outreach thing, and we had a cellist there playing. So they were kind of like learning about the cello, and the kids all get to try the cello and everything. But he was playing this piece called The Swan, which is a really beautiful cello piece. And usually it's played with the cello and an accompanying piano. And this student got up and said, well, you need the piano part, and just went to the piano and started playing it. And I mean, playing it perfectly, like beautiful expression, playing all the right notes. And I knew I had never taught him that piece, but his parents also had no idea where he'd even heard that piece. So he'd heard it somewhere, obviously, but he'd never really learned it and just went up and played it. And that's a very special ability. It's not to say that all students have that and they don't need to, but I think it's a good example of, you don't know these abilities until they have the opportunity to try these things, right? Like if he had never been in that room with that cellist, we would never have seen him get up and play that. He would never have had the opportunity to do that. So that's just one example, but we've had a lot of things like that where we've seen these abilities come out, So, yeah, that one I thought was really, really cool. And him and the cellist actually went around and sort of did little performances after that together. And it was so great to see him have that opportunity then to work with this brilliant professional musician. So, we were really, really happy. I was really happy as his teacher to be able to see him, shine through that opportunity.
Amazing. Absolutely. I mean, to a degree, you have to be born with some musical capacity to be able to do it. Like it helps when you have perfect pitch, which you have to be born with that. You can't develop that, but you can develop relative pitch. You can develop dexterity with your hands, so forth, depending on what you play your instrument with. But to have that inborn talent it's quite rare, and it's something very special as well.
Yeah. And I mean, this student does have perfect pitch. I mean, he wouldn't have been able to do that without that. But we do see way more perfect pitch in different disability populations. Like with autism, for example, like in the general population, to have perfect pitch, which is where you just know what a pitch is without any context, right, is about 1 in 10,000 people. So it's pretty rare. And like you said, you can't learn it. But with people with autism, it's about 1 in 20. So like it's huge, and we see a lot of different exceptionalities where there are these great listening, abilities and pitch abilities. So there's so much potential there, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. My best friend, she was born with perfect pitch, and she says sometimes it's a curse because when she's singing with a choir, she can tell when you're off by this much.
Yeah, I had a student once that had perfect pitch, and like I'm not a great singer, but I'm okay. I've been singing and doing music for a long time. I thought I was okay anyway, but when I would sing in our lessons, he would just reach over and cover my mouth. So obviously I was not like in tune enough for him.
Yeah, some people, and in myself included, because I don't have perfect pitch exactly, but I'm pretty close. But like, you do need a tuner at some points for sure.
Yeah.
So, what is one thing that you see happening again and again with people with disabilities that just shouldn't be? And how do you think we change that?
So the thing that I see happening that really frustrates me is music teachers telling the student or the parents that the student just can't learn music. And I hear that so often. Like students come to Lotus Center and the parents are like, we tried taking lessons from, the music teacher down the street or whatever. And they just said that they can't learn. And when I'm on music teacher groups on social media, I see the same thing where the teachers are like, the student came to me, he obviously has ADHD or whatever, he can't focus, so he can't do piano lessons. And I'm just like, oh, please don't, please don't do that. Because just not the case. And I just don't feel like, I just feel like it's such a disservice to tell anybody they can't learn. I mean, that's not true of anybody for anything, right? Like anybody can learn anything as far as I'm concerned. Um, but that happens a lot, like way more than I would like to hear about it. So that's the biggest thing to me is it happens way too often and it shouldn't happen at all.
Agree, especially in the creative fields, but just in general, there is no such thing as unteachability.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. What's the one thing for an individual with a disability learning music for the first time? Like, what is one thing that they need to know going into that?
Um, that's a good question. I think that anybody going into learning music just needs to be open to the process and try to, I don't want to say try to, because it's not on them. But I think connecting with the teacher is really, really important. But I think that that's definitely more on the teacher to try to make a connection and build sort of mutual respect. But I think what the student can bring into it is um, sharing, their own interests and what they want to get out of the process and letting the teacher know that. And for those that are aware of what they need, not being afraid to express that. And I find for some of our students, they don't know what they need. And part of what we can do as teachers is help them to understand that, like help them to learn what accommodations they need or supports they need and develop some self advocacy. But for those who already know, come into it with that self advocacy ready. Like, we want to know, we're here for you. So just be very open about how you learn, what you need, if you need more space or time to do things, if you need a break, if you don't like what the teacher is doing. Just being part of that learning process, like as the student, it's your learning process. We're there for you. So I know for me as a teacher, I really just want to make sure I'm giving my student what they're looking for, but we need to be in partnership for that to happen.
For sure. I remember with my very first piano teacher, she tried to get me to sight read. I'm too blind to sight read. There would be 3 bars per page, how much she had to enlarge it. And then when she found out that I wanted to do both vocal and composition, she passed me off to the guy I've got now, but he does not make me sight read. He does everything with me by ear because that was also his specialty. Because he does piano, violin, vocal, and I believe guitar. So he's very prolific and he composes himself as well. So I don't know, we meshed because he didn't try to force me to do something that, like, I'm not going to say I'm not capable necessarily, but it's challenging to the point where it's like, why am I bothering with this when this way is so much easier?
Well, that's it, right? And like I said, like it's on the teacher to figure that out. But also if as a student you're kind of realizing, hey, I can't do this, the way you're asking me to, or this isn't working for me. Like, sometimes as a teacher, I don't know, like I'm trying to do things and I just, I'm trying my best, but I'm making mistakes or I don't know. And sometimes it is also like, it's okay if you don't mesh with your teacher, right? Like we all have that with just people we meet, right? You mesh with some people better than others. That's just normal. And it's okay to say, you know what, this isn't the best fit for me. Let me go find a teacher that's a better fit. Like everybody has their teaching styles, or it's just a personality thing. And that's totally okay. Like if a student doesn't mesh with me, we do that at Lotus Center sometimes. Like, well, let's try another teacher. Like, that's okay. Again, we're there for you. We want you to learn. And whatever that means, if it means another teacher, then like, no problem. We can all just feel good about that everybody's getting what they need to.
For sure. All right, bit of a packed in question here. There's more than one thing to ask with this question. But are there any events coming up for Lotus? And if someone wanted to become a member or volunteer with you, how could they get a hold of you and how do they find your information?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of always have events coming up. So I know one that went out in our like email network today was an adaptive concert with Ottawa Chamberfest coming up in a couple weeks. We often have free tickets for concerts that are given to us by organizations, that kind of thing. And so the best way to get into, well, the best thing to do is to go on our website and sign up for our newsletter or to be part of our mailing list, because then you'll get information about all of these different things, including our programs too. Like if we have camp opening up, like especially things like camp or different programs, like, let's say we open registration on the first of the month at 8 a.m. It will be full for the summer by 9 a.m. Like it fills up really quickly. So, if you're in the Ottawa area and you want to do those programs, it's good to be on that mailing list, but also for volunteer opportunities. Whenever we do these programs, like these concerts or camp or whatever, there's opportunities to volunteer. So again, there's an email address on the website. It's info@lotuscenter.net. You can just reach out and let us know that you want to volunteer. But there's also volunteer opportunities online as well. So you can reach out for more information about helping with the registration for these events, that kind of thing. We're always looking for volunteers and very thankful for volunteers.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Do you have any just closing remarks or anything you want to add? Because we are coming up on time a little bit.
No, I think that, the main thing I want to say is that if, there are people listening that are considering it, please try to find a teacher that's going to be, a good fit for you, and just go for it. There are teachers that know exactly what to do. And it can really, be such a meaningful experience. Learning music is, for those of us that have done it, can be so enriching. And I just want to make sure everybody has that opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. That was a great interview.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, folks, that wraps another interview. I'm your host, Lilly Cereghini with V4A Radio. And remember, stick together because we are in this together. Bye, folks.